come on, come on, come on. Click, click, boom. Come on, come on. Everybody, come on, come on, come on. Click, click, boom.
The 2008-2009 Elite League season began for the Sheffield Steelers on the 6th of September 2008 with a visit from the Edinburgh Capitals, with both teams looking for a strong start to the season. From the opening face-off, both teams took to the ice with great determination and a back-and-forth contest began. However, even with Neil Hayes' 2-minute hooking penalty just happening, it didn't stop the Capitals drawing first blood with a short-handed effort by Taylor Christie following a leading pass by Sean Germain. Second blood came only a few minutes later when Jody Lehman leaves his pre-screen suspected dumping and Doug Christensen fires home the Capitals' second goal of the game. The Steelers came back for the second period firing on all cylinders, putting heavy pressure on the Capitals. But the Capitals stood tall during the Steelers' onslaught as Passy right to them forms a brick wall in front of the net to deny the Steelers. But following Joey Talbot's hooking and game misconduct penalty, the Capitals had the advantage and Doug Christensen fires home his second and the Capitals' third goal of the night. This didn't stop the Steelers, however, and they turned the pressure up a notch in the third period. But the saves of Brighton, the Capitals' forecheck and the crossbar denied the Steelers many chances. The Steelers weren't to be denied, and following a great set of passes from Robert Dowd and Rod Sarich, Jeff LeGree fires home his and the Steelers' first goal of the season. LeGree's goal breathed new life into the Steelers, who carried on piling the pressure following Taylor Christie's cross-checking penalty. The Steelers kept coming at the Capitals in the closing moments, but the Capitals worked hard on the penalty kill and the Steelers couldn't take advantage of their power play opportunity. The final score, Sheffield Steelers 1, Edinburgh Capitals 3. A trip across the Severn Bridge was next for Dave Matsos and the Steelers as they took on the Cardiff Devils at the Cardiff Bay Arena. The Steelers, hoping to put the previous night's loss behind them, entered into a usually tough game against the Welsh team. But 2 goals by Joey Talbot put victory into the hands of the Steelers as they left Cardiff with 2 points. Following an 8-2 victory against the Basingstoke Bison, the Coventry Blaze made their way into Sheffield with Paul Thompson hoping for a similar performance tonight. Blaze netminder JF Paras made things tough for the Steelers in the first period, stopping shots almost at will, robbing the Steelers of a power play goal early on. The second period opened up the game as a 5-on-3 power play advantage for the Steelers had the Blaze in trouble, and the one-timer between Scott Bassett and scorer Randy Dagenet put the Steelers up by 1. The Steelers kept up the pressure on the Blaze, and with Jonathan Weaver in the penalty box for hooking, Ashley Tate put away the Steelers' second goal. Just under 4 minutes later, the Steelers struck again with Ashley Tate taking advantage of a turnover in the neutral zone to net his second and the Steelers' third goal of the game. The Blaze were 2 men down again with Danny Stewart and Dan Carlson both in the penalty box, and Ashley Tate links up with Doug Shepherd for the Steelers' fourth goal of the night. The Steelers' onslaught continued into the third period as Jay Paras stops a shot, but on fire Ashley Tate nets the rebound and scores his hat-trick, gets his 4th point and puts the Steelers up by 5. With Rod Sarich and Ashley Tate both in the penalty box on hooking calls, the Blaze power play unit put pressure on the Steelers, with Jonathan Weaver passing to Dan Carlson, who scores the Blaze's first goal of the game. The Blaze carried on the pressure in the final minutes of the game, with Nathan Gillies being penalised for hooking, but it wasn't to be. Post-game scuffle between Mark Thomas and Dan Carlson ended the game and gave them both roughing penalties, but the score in the end, Sheffield Steelers 5, Coventry Blaze 1. The NIC was next, with a game against the Nottingham Panthers, and the rivalry was clearly still on as Ryan Finnerty and Bruce Richardson dropped gloves in the opening seconds. Goals in the first period by David Clark and Brendan Cook gave the Panthers the advantage, but goals by Ryan Finnerty, Robert Dowd and Doug Shepard in the second gave the Steelers the lead going into the third period. Kevin Bergen opened up the scoring in the third to tie the game up 3-3, but Ryan Finnerty scored his second of the game, making it 4-3. Former Steeler Dan Tessier and Panthers captain Kevin Bergen score a goal each to put the game away at Nottingham Panthers 5, Sheffield Steelers 4. A visit from the Hull Stingrays came next at the House of Steel, with Rick Strachan's men hoping to extend their winning streak to 3 games. But Doug Shepard put a dent in those plans with a goal midway through the first period. But it wasn't until the opening minute of the second period that the Steelers scored again, as Randy Dagenet scores from the point and also sends a lucky fan home £250 richer. Steelers pushed on, and following a face-off, Jeff Leglee scores, putting the Steelers up 3-0 off a power play. Leglee carried on causing problems for the Stingrays during a 5-on-3 power play advantage, scoring his second goal of the game. With only 4 men on the ice, the Steelers kept on with their man advantage when Robert Dowd scored the Steelers' 5th unanswered goal. The Stingrays didn't back down, however, as Matt Reynolds passes from behind the net, so Steve Stonener can score the Stingrays' first goal of the game. The Steelers answered fairly quickly when Joey Talbot fires the puck past Curtis Cruikshank. A great save by Jody Lehman stopped Hull scoring a second, and Ashley Tate extended the lead to 7-1 with a goal to end the second period. Dan Green replaced Jody Lehman for the third period, but Matt Reynolds puts the puck past him midway through the third period. And a few minutes later, Lee Mitchell fires home the Stingrays' third goal of the night. But the Steelers have put the game out of reach as it ended Hull Stingrays 3, Sheffield Steelers 7. The final game of September for the Steelers came with a visit to Altrincham and Tony Hand's Manchester Phoenix. A very even contest ensued until Rod Sarek scored midway through the first period. David Beauregard nets the equaliser in the second period with an assist from Tony Hand. No goals in the third period or overtime meant a penalty shootout, which the Manchester Phoenix won, putting another away loss on the Steelers. At the end of September, the Steelers were in 5th place with 3 wins, 2 losses and 1 overtime loss, giving them 7 points, putting them 7 points behind top of the table Belfast Giants, who had won 7 out of 8 games. The Panthers went far behind with 12 points and a game in hand, and the Manchester Phoenix were third with 11 points and a game in hand as we enter October. Goals by Ryan Finnerty, Doug Shepard and Jonathan Phillips put the Steelers up by 3 in the first period. A 20-minute unsportsmanlike conduct penalty against Andrew Sharp at the end of the first period and a second period goal by Jason Costadine didn't stamp in the Steelers' efforts, as Ashley Tate makes it 4-1 by the end of the second period. Robert Dowd made it 5-1 early in the third, and Lee Esders gave the Stingrays a consolation goal, but the final score was Sheffield Steelers 5, Hull Stingrays 2. The Basingstoke Bison came to Sheffield to challenge the Steelers for the first time this season. With new advisors signing Matt Miller on the bench for a roughing penalty, the Steelers power play unit went to work, with Ashley Tate connecting with Rod Sarek, who scores the opening goal of the game. With Ryan Finnerty on the bench for a hooking penalty, Joey Talbot finds himself picking up the turnover and scoring a sole effort short-handed goal. The Steelers' onslaught continues as Ryan Finnerty puts away a rebound off of Nathan Gillies' Jonathan Phillips one-timer. A scuffle between Scott Bassett and Curtis Patrick broke out in the latter part of the period as officials attempted to separate the players. A fight between Jeremy Cornish and Jeff Leglee began. split to Randy Dagenais and Curtis Patrick squaring off, with Randy Dagenais coming out on top. With the fights out of the way, the Steelers quickly added to the goal total, with Ashley Tate scoring the Steelers' 4th goal. The Steelers came out for the second period and the goals came with them, as Doug Sheffield scored early on in the second period. The new Bison signing Matt Miller opened the Bison scoring, making sure Kurt Reynolds' slapshot makes his way past Jody Lehman. Tempest flared again midway through the second period as Andrew Sharp and Jeremy Cornish got into it, following a war of words between the two. The Bison carried on the pressure towards the end of the second period, but when Jody Lehman saves a slap shot by Greg Chambers, the Steelers struck with McGuee passing to Gillies, who passes on to Ryan Finnerty, who scores his second and the Steelers' 6th goal of the game. The Bison were still in the threat late in the third period, as the Steelers had the power play advantage, but future Steeler Brad Cruikshank took advantage of a turnover and scored a consolation goal for the Bison. The final score, Basingstoke Bison 2, Sheffield Steelers 6. A great revelry was continued as the Sheffield Steelers took on the Nottingham Panthers at the Sheffield Arena, with the Steelers coming off a Challenge Cup defeat to the Belfast Giants and the Panthers coming off a tough victory against the Hull Stingrays. Mid-power play, Joe Talbot jumps on a turnover, but Davis Parley denies the shot. It only took 10 minutes for Tempest to flare, as Ryan Finnerty and Bruce Richardson dropped the gloves following a vicious body check against the boards. It would be a Panthers power play that opened up the game, as former Steeler Dan Tessier passed to Corey Nielsen, who shot wide of the net, and the Swede Johan Molen scores the rebound. Second period, and following a holding penalty by James Ferrara, the Panthers held up the Steelers' power play, but Ryan Finnerty hooked up with Ashley Tate, who tied the game at 1 apiece. But the Panthers wasted little time responding, with Kevin Bergen scoring his first goal during the 5-on-3 power play. A few seconds later, and still with a man advantage, Corey Nielsen backhands a pass from Jake Galbraith past Joey Lehman to put the Panthers up 3-1. The Steelers regroup quickly with a power play of their own only a minute later when Robert Dowd brings the game back for the Steelers at 3-2. With the Steelers' momentum building, Joey Talbot ties the game at 3 goals apiece. The Steelers carried on the pressure until the end of the second period, when Robert Dowd scores his second goal of the game. The third period was much the same when Robert Dowd scores his hat-trick, making the score 5-3. Joey Talbot, not wanting to be outdone, puts the puck in the net after Jeffrey Green is denied. The final score, Sheffield Steelers 6, Nottingham Panthers 3. A tough task ahead of the Steelers arrived in the form of Gerard Adams' Cardiff Devils. The Devils were coming off a penalty shootout loss to the Belfast Giants and were looking to get back on track against the Steelers. The physicality was evident from the start, with both teams working hard to gain an advantage. The back and forth action kept both teams on their toes as Mike Hartwick's shot is denied by Jody Lehman. Tempers begin to fly as a hard hit on Joey Talbot leads to a spearing and game misconduct penalty as Talbot reacts. The Steelers put on the pressure in the second period as Ryan Finnerty is denied an open goal following Peter Aubrey's unorthodox defence. The referees called for a penalty shot and Jeff Legree was there to take it. However, Albury manages to save the shot and keep it tied 0-0. The third period began and the Devils really took it to the Steelers as the hits came hard until Phil Hill was charged with a boarding penalty. This gave the Steelers all the momentum they needed as Jeff Legree gained retribution for the earlier penalty shot to score the first goal for the Steelers. Legree almost makes it 2-0, but Albury's flexible goaltending skills denies him this time. With the game coming to a close, Rod Sarek catches Doug McIver off guard and scores a short-handed goal. The final score, Sheffield Steelers 2, Cardiff Devils 0. A trip east to the Newcastle Vipers was next for Dave Matzos' men, with both teams coming off a couple of big wins. Ashley Tate opened the scoring for the Steelers, but Derek Campbell didn't take long to close the gap, tying the game at 1-1. Joey Talbot put the Steelers ahead in the second period as the Steelers led 2-1 going into the third. Todd Griffin made the Steelers sweat with 2 goals in quick succession as the Vipers pulled ahead 3-2. But Robert Dowd scores for the Steelers late in the third to take the game to overtime. A scoreless overtime period took the game to penalties, which in the end the Newcastle Vipers won. Final score, Newcastle Vipers 4, Sheffield Steelers 3. No change of position for the Steelers at the end of October, with them being 5th with 16 points. Coventry jumps up from 4th to 1st as Belfast drop 1 position to 2nd and Nottingham and Manchester drop to 3rd and 4th. A 5-1 win over the Edinburgh Capitals and a 2-1 victory over the Hull Stingrays put the Steelers in good form when Tony Hand's Manchester Phoenix arrived at the arena. But it would be Nathan Ward opening the scoring for the Phoenix with a nice goal after poke checking the puck away from Brad Cruikshank. The Steelers struck back very quickly as Scott Bassett connected with Brad Cruikshank, who equalises with a tight angle shot. The Phoenix didn't let up, making Jody Lehman work hard in goal. With Kyle Bruce out for tripping, the Steelers power play unit were on the attack, with Joey Talbot making it 2-1 in the closing minute of the first period. Phoenix came back invigorated in the second period and took full advantage of Steve Munn's interference penalty as Kenton Smith and Lucas Bennett hooked up with David Beauregard, who nets the first goal of the period. A few minutes later, with Scott Bassett and Steve Munn both in the penalty box, the Manchester Phoenix take the lead through a power play goal by Kenton Smith. The Steelers fought back towards the end of the second period as Rod Sarek slipped behind the Phoenix goal and Doug Shepherd fired home his pass to tie the game at 3-3. The third period saw the Steelers come out playing hard after Stephen Murphy denied Scott Bassett's attempt. Ryan Finnerty was on hand, however, to take the lead at the start of the third period. A couple minutes later, Ryan Finnerty's out for more goals, but Stephen Murphy denies him. A fake by Doug Shepherd as the skill behind the net gives him enough space to pass to Brad Cruikshank, who scores his second goal and gets his 4th point of the game. The Steelers took the game out of reach in the final minutes with Jeff Legree's goal. Andrew Sharp and Brett Cloutier dropped the gloves. Doug Shepherd passes to Ryan Finnerty, who scores at the end of an exciting game. Final score, Sheffield Steelers 7, Manchester Phoenix 3. The game was taken to Altrincham as the Steelers took on a Manchester Phoenix team who wanted to avenge the previous night's loss. A very back and forth contest began with Joey Talbot scoring in the first 2 minutes of the first period, but Brett Cloutier tied the game only a couple minutes later. Jeff Legree then scored a power play goal soon after, but Nathan Ward evened things up. The second period saw Ryan Finnerty, then Rod Sarek as the only goal scorers as the Steelers took a 4-2 lead over the Phoenix. Nathan Ward lessens the gap with a goal midway through the third period, but with just over 5 minutes to go, Joey Talbot scores his second goal of the game. The Phoenix didn't give up, however, as Lucas Bennett scores in the final minutes, but it wasn't enough as the final score was Manchester Phoenix 4, Sheffield Steelers 5. The second visit for Paul Thompson and the Coventry Blaze at the Sheffield Arena came next, with the Blaze coming into the game on the back of a 5-game winning streak and hoping to keep the streak alive. The Steelers put a dent in those plans midway through the first period as Joey Talbot passes the puck through the Blaze defence and Jeff Green nets the Steelers' first goal. With Danny Stewart in the box for a slashing liner, the Steelers took advantage of being a man up on a scramble in front of the Blaze net, and it was Ashley Tate scoring to put the Steelers up 2-0 at the end of the first period. The Steelers kept up the pressure at the start of the second as the Steelers power play unit were kept out by some good goaltending by J.F. Barras. The Steelers found themselves a man down after Ryan Finnerty was given a hooking penalty. Sylvain de Châtelet passes to Jonathan Reeder to put the game at 2-1. The Coventry Blaze nearly made it 2-2, but Jody Lehman denies them late in the second period. The power play once again reared its ugly head for the Blaze as Barras stops a one-timer between Rod Sarich and Jeff Green, but Robert Dowd puts away the rebound to put the Steelers up 3-1. With the game coming to a close, Ryan Finnerty passes down the ice to the Steelers' newest player, Brad Cruikshank, who put the game away with a goal late in the third. The final score, Sheffield Steelers 4, Coventry Blaze 1. The Cardiff Bay Arena next, and the rivalry between the Steelers and the Devils boiled over in the opening seconds as Doug McIver and Brad Cruikshank dropped the gloves. Then 7 minutes later, Andrew Sharp and Mike Hartwick fought, but it would be Phil Hill to score the first in a heated first period, but Joey Talbot would tie the game at 1-1 to end the period. A very even second period kept the scoreline at 1-1. It would take till the latter half of the final period as Phil Hill put the Devils up, but the Steelers took the game into overtime when Rod Sarich hooked up with Robert Dowd to end the third period. A goalless overtime ended in a shootout, which the Steelers won to take the game at Cardiff Devils 2, Sheffield Steelers 3 after penalties. Next came a hard-fought victory at the Newcastle Vipers, which ended in a Steelers win at 3-4. And then yet another road game as the Steelers visited the Basingstoke Bison. Rod Sarich opens up the scoring early, but Greg Chambers replied quickly to tie the game 1-1 at the end of the first period. Jeff Green makes it 2-1 midway through the second period, and Doug Shepherd adds to the goals to make it 3-1. But the Bison fought on as Brent Hughes ends the second period at Basingstoke Bison 2, Sheffield Steelers 3. With the third period closing down and Brent Hughes out of the game on a hooking minor, all seemed lost for the Bison until Danny Stewart took advantage of a turnover to tie the game at 3-3 with a short-handed goal. This took the game into overtime, but it remained tied and led to a penalty shootout, which the Basingstoke Bison won, making the final score Basingstoke Bison 4, Sheffield Steelers 3 after penalties. After the previous night's defeat, the Steelers and the Bison squared off at Ice Sheffield in the final game of the month for the Steelers. The Steelers power play unit was out early as Kurt Reynolds was out for tripping, but they were denied by Kevin Reiter. The Bison kept up the pressure with some hard defensive work and some good goaltending by Jody Lehman kept the score at 0-0 to end the first period. The second period started strong for the Steelers when Rod Sarich shoots wide, but Joey Talbot scores the first goal for the Steelers. The Steelers kept coming at the Bison as Kevin Reiter got a piece of Robert Dowd's shot, but the puck still crosses the line to put the Steelers up 2-0 at the end of the second period. The Steelers got to work quickly at the start of the third as Brad Cruikshank scores in the first minute of the third period against his old side. With Reiter down in the crease, the Steelers pounced as Jason Hewitt scores to further the Steelers' lead to 4 unanswered goals. Things carried on going from bad to worse for the Basingstoke Bison when Jeff Legree passes through the Bison D and Doug Shepherd scores goal number 5. A few seconds later, and Doug Shepherd keeps on the attack to score his second goal to make the final score Sheffield Steelers 6, Basingstoke Bison 0. Sheffield end November in first place, jumping up from 5th, ending their month on 34 points. Coventry were nipping at the heels of the Steelers in second place on 32 points. Belfast in third were only 4 points behind the Steelers with 2 games in hand, as it was very close at the top of the table going into December. The first game of December was against the Belfast Giants at the Sheffield Arena, as first and second clashed. The Steelers dominated the start of the game, but Steve Lyle stopped them from scoring. But the Steelers were relentless as Rod Sarich links up with Jonathan Phillips, who puts the puck past Steve Lyle in the last minute of the first period. Tempers flared at the end of the first period as Steve Munn's shot was saved, but an altercation between the players ended the period. The Steelers started the period short-handed, but that didn't stop them as Ryan Finnerty picks up a turnover for Rod Sarich, who scores to make it 2-0. The Steelers kept up the unrelenting pressure, but Steve Lyle stopped the shot. But he couldn't stop everything as Scott Bassett fires a laser past Lyle to make it 3-0. Over a minute later, things got worse for the Giants as a turnover in the defensive zone was picked up by Robert Dowd, who passed to Doug Sheffield, who scored goal number 4. A relentless Steelers kept coming at the Giants as Joe Talbot passes to Jeff Agree, who fires home goal number 5. An uneventful third period didn't alter the scoreline as the game ended Sheffield Steelers 5, Belfast Giants nothing. A difficult game in Edinburgh came next for the Steelers as Dave Matsos took his men to face the Capitals. Mark Hurtubise opened up the scoring in the opening minutes, but Jonathan Phillips tied the game up before the 5-minute mark. Second period began with the Steelers' onslaught as Doug Shepard scores a power play goal, Ashley Tate scores a short-handed goal, and Robert Dowd scores a power play goal of his own. Martin Kingle scores a power play goal of his own to end the second period with the scoreline 4-2 to the Steelers. But following some strong D and creative offense, Ian Bowie puts the puck past Lehman and Mark Hurtubise scores his second to tie the game at 4-4. Overtime period ended goalless, so the penalty shootout followed, with the Steelers taking 2 points, with the score Edinburgh Capitals 4, Sheffield Steelers 5 after a shootout. The Manchester Phoenix came into the arena hoping to get back on track following a tough overtime loss to the Cardiff Devils earlier in the week. But the Steelers, who were on a great form, struck early as Brad Cruikshank scores the first goal of the game. The Steelers almost made it 2, but Stephen Murphy covers the puck. But Brad Cruikshank struck again as he puts the puck in the net to put the Steelers up 2-0. Following a quiet second period, the Steelers came out and made a lot of noise as Joey Talbot scores, making the score 3-0. Not content with 2, Brad Cruikshank fires the puck into the Phoenix goal for his hat-trick. The final 2 minutes were announced, but the Phoenix kept trying as Carl Graham scores a consolation goal, but the final score, Sheffield Steelers 4, Manchester Phoenix 1. The festive season was definitely not being shared in Cardiff on this night as the Devils-Steelers rivalry hit fever pitch down at the Cardiff Bay Arena. Matt Toe and Brad Cruikshank got into it 4 minutes in as tempers flared early in the first. No goals were scored until midway through the second period, with Phil Hill and Scott Bassett in the penalty box. Mark Thomas scores a 4-on-4 goal to give the Steelers the lead, but a hard-hitting and penalty-filled game continued until Joey Talbot scored the Steelers' second goal midway through the third period. The end of the game descended into chaos as fights between Jayla Tulip and Joey Talbot, Andrew Sharp and Wes Jarvis, bench clearances, spearings and physical abuse were just some of the penalties handed out in a game that had over 246 penalty minutes issued. The final score, however, Sheffield Steelers 2, Cardiff Devils nothing. The Vipers followed the chaos in Cardiff, with Sheffield losing both Sharp and Talbot for the game against the Vipers squad coming off a loss to the Coventry Blaze and were hungry for a win. The Vipers put on the pressure early as Jody Lehman stops Jeff Hutchins' shot on goal. A vicious takedown of Ashley Tate by Rob Rankin causes some havoc on the ice as Todd Griffith and Jonathan Phillips square off, both receiving roughing penalties as a result. The second period started off as rough as the end of the first, as Rob Wilson puts the puck in the net to put the Vipers up by 1. With Jason Hewitt in the penalty box on a roughing penalty, the Steelers were short-handed, which Ed Courtney took full advantage of, scoring the Vipers' second goal. The third period was as bad as the others for the Sheffield Steelers, as Ben Campbell puts the Vipers up 3-0. Jeremy Lundis' interference penalty gave Dave Maxos' men a glimmer of hope late in the third, as Scott Bassett scores a power play goal. Jody Lehman was pulled in the final minute in an attempt to utilise the man advantage, but Derek Campbell intercepts a pass and scores an empty net goal. The final score, Sheffield Steelers 1, Newcastle Vipers 4. Another trip to Manchester for a hard-hitting game against the Phoenix was in store for the Steelers in the last game before Christmas. An early Christmas present was given to the Phoenix fans by Luke Fulham, who scored midway into the first period after Ryan Finnerty's hooking minor gave the home side the man advantage. But the Steelers came back in a second with a power play goal of their own scored by Jeff Legui. The period ended with a fight between Ryan Finnerty and Lucas Bennett, but the third period started with a goal as Jonathan Phillips scores a solo effort in the opening minute. With Stephen Murphy pulled out of the Phoenix goal for the 6-on-5 advantage, Rod Sarich links up with Ashley Tate, who scores an empty net goal. The final score, Manchester Phoenix 1, Sheffield Steelers 3. Boxing Day at the Sheffield Arena with a sellout crowd filled the building for a huge clash between the Steelers and the Panthers, with the physicality evident from the start. It only took 5 minutes before Ryan Finnerty and Bruce Richardson decided to drop the glove and the fight was on. It will be Finnerty causing havoc again for the Panthers as he opens the scoring off the power play advantage. The Steelers found themselves a man down a couple of minutes later as big Kevin Bergen ties the game at 1 apiece. The Panthers were at a disadvantage early in the second period and the Steelers attacked as Dagenet's shot is saved but Robert Dowd's rebound hits the back of the net. The power play came into play once again as a man down Panthers let another goal pass when Ashley Tate makes the score 3-1. The tempest flared as Randy Dagenet's cross check leads to a scuffle. And then Brad Cruikshank is taken out of the game on a high sticking and game misconduct penalty. This shifted the momentum slightly into the Panthers' favour, as following a face-off win by Corey Nielsen, Brendan Cook scores to make the score 3-2. Yet another power play against the Panthers cost them, as Jeff Legui passes to Joey Talbot to make it 4-2. With the Panthers still down a player, Robert Dowd pounces on a rebound to put the game into the hands of the Steelers. The final score, Sheffield Steelers 5, Nottingham Panthers 2. The next day came the last game of 2008 and another sold-out crowd was on hand at the NIC to see the Steelers and the Panthers face off again. 3 seconds after the first face-off, Ruben Under and Brad Cruikshank dropped the gloves to fight. It took to near the end of the second period before a goal was scored, as Joey Talbot gave the Steelers the lead. But only minutes later, Brendan Cook equalised. A goalless third period took the game into overtime, where Matthew Myers scored in 56 seconds to make the final score, Nottingham Panthers 2, Sheffield Steelers 1. At the end of 2008, the Steelers were on top with a 7-point lead at 49 points. Second was still the Coventry Blaze as they had 42 points, and the Nottingham Panthers jumped up 1 place from last month to third, also on 42 points. With 2008 out of the way, the Hull Stingrays came to ice Sheffield to face the Steelers for the opening fixture of 2009. An intense and back and forth contest ensued during the first period, with both teams looking to score and take advantage of the game. The Steelers worked hard during power play opportunities, but the Stingrays held them off. But the Steelers kept up the pressure, and Brad Cruikshank fires home the first goal of the game. 50 seconds later, an on-fire Steelers score again, as Scott Bassett gets the puck to Jeff Legui off a face-off and scores the Steelers' second. 30 seconds later and the Steelers refused to hold back, but Jason Hewitt fires a shot into the net for goal number 3. The Stingrays found themselves in a 5-on-3 power play soon after, and Pavel Golmeny makes it 3-1. With a 5-on-4 power play advantage, the Stingrays followed the quick goal trend developed in the game when Matt Reynolds scores the Stingrays' second goal. The Stingrays kept coming at the Steelers, and Matt Reynolds ties the game at 3-3 at the end of the second period. The Steelers worked hard to finish the game up in the third, but the Stingrays refused to give up. A turnover chance and a breakaway at the beginning of overtime seemed to put them on the way to winning the game, until Steve Skinnier is put in the penalty box for hooking. This gave the Steelers a 4-on-3 advantage, where Jeff Legree puts the puck in the net to give the Steelers the win. Final score: Sheffield Steelers 4, Hull Stingrays 3. A journey to Coventry was next as an on-fire Steelers took on the Blaze at the Sky Dome. Early goals by Joey Talbot and Scott Barsick put the Steelers ahead early in the first. Jonathan Weaver scored a power play goal to bring the Blaze back to reaching distance of the Steelers, but Brad Cruikshank increased the Steelers lead to 3-1, but Dan Carlson made it 3-2 to end the second period. A slashing minor on Jeff Legree gave the Blaze a much-needed power play, which Jonathan Weaver took full advantage of, tying the game at 3-3 in the final couple of minutes. An overtime period was played, where Jeff Legree took advantage of a turnover to score a solo effort and give the Steelers 2 points. Final score: Coventry Blaze 3, Sheffield Steelers 4. The Cardiff Devils made their way to the arena, coming off a loss in Belfast only 3 days previously. The game started out physical as the animosity from the game at the Bay still loomed. But at the 15th minute, Joey Talbot picks the puck off Doug McIver and passes to Doug Shepherd to take the lead. The intensity built at the end of the first, as a cross-check by Brad Bott is replied with a roughing minor by Jeff Legree. The Devils found themselves in a power play opportunity as Jonathan Phillips ended up in the penalty box on a hooking minor, and Brad Boff ties the game at 1-1. But the Steelers fought back and Jeff Legree puts the Steelers up 2-1. The Steelers found themselves in a power kill and couldn't stop Jalen Tulip slipping the puck past Joey Lehman, tying the game at 2-2. Momentum was on the Devils' side as Matt Toe links up with Wes Jarvis to put the Devils up 3-2. The Steelers come out for the third period fired up as Brad Cruikshank scores in the opening minute of the third, making it 3-3. The Steelers nearly scored near the end of the third period, but Wes Jarvis' roughing minor stopped them. A tense overtime period saw a fair amount of chances, but the netminders kept their teams in the game. With Teplitsky and Boff both scoring in the shootout, and Jeff Legree scoring for the Steelers, it was up to Scott Barsick to tie things up, but Aubrey saves. Jody Lehman stops Jamie Tulip to keep Sheffield in the game. But Joey Talbot couldn't get past Peter Aubrey, so the final score: Sheffield Steelers 3, Cardiff Devils 4 after penalties. Another home game that weekend for the Steelers came in the form of Belfast Giants, who had defeated Cardiff the previous Thursday and wanted to keep the wins coming, but Robert Dad had other plans, scoring early on the power play. The Steelers kept up the pressure on the Giants, and midway through the first, Ashley Tate scores to put the Steelers up by 2. But the Giants weren't to be taken lightly, as they pounced on a loose puck in the slot, and Bobby Robbins puts the score to 2-1. The Giants found themselves with a man advantage at the end of the first and put it to good use as Evan Shirley scores and ties the game at 2-2. The Steelers put the pressure on the Giants in the second, but Steve Lyle kept the puck out. It wouldn't be till the end of the second period for the Steelers to score when Joey Talbot puts the Steelers up 3-2. The Steelers kept up the offense in the third, but Steve Lyle kept on denying them. But a tripping minor on Ryan Finston gave the Giants the advantage as Paul Denisette scores, taking the game into overtime. It wasn't Steelers' night, as only a minute into the overtime period, Dave Phillips passes up to Steve Thornton, who scores the game winner. Final score, Sheffield Steelers 3, Belfast Giants 4. The Phoenix came to the arena off a disappointing weekend, made worse when Robert Dowd scores early on. The Phoenix replied a few minutes later as Tony Hand passes from behind the goal to David Beauregard to close the gap at 2-1. Things got worse for the Steelers when Tony Hand fires the puck past Jody Lehman to tie the game at 2-2. The Steelers brought an aggressively offense-based game from the start of the second. And it pays off as Brad Cruikshank increases the lead 3-2. Vasek Amurin dropped the goal a few minutes later. But the Phoenix pounced on a power play advantage as Tony Hand scores a short-handed goal to tie the game at 3-3. The Steelers struck back in the third when Ryan Finnerty increases the lead at 4-3. And things got worse for the Phoenix as an on-fire Brad Cruikshank scores a hat-trick late in the third. Cruikshank was involved in the game yet again, this time fighting Kyle Bruce. Final score, Sheffield Steelers 5, Manchester Phoenix 2. A visit to Hull and a 4-game road stretch was next for the Steelers. A good start was what Dave Matzos was after, which he got when Doug Shepard scores early in the first. Ashley Tate scores the Steelers' second midway through the first, making it 2-0 to the Steelers. Ryan Finnerty got in on the act midway through the second to make it 3-0 for the Steelers. And in the closing minutes of the game, Joey Talbot scores a power play goal to end the game at Hull Stingrays 0, Sheffield Steelers 4. Another tough game against the Giants in Belfast was next. An even first period deficit was broken early in the second as Bobby Robbins scores a power play goal to give the Giants the lead. The Steelers fought back in the third period as Brad Cruikshank ties the game up 5 minutes into the third. But it would be Ryan Finnerty scoring off the power play goal off Dave Phillips' interference minor in the last minute as the Steelers won a tough road game at Belfast Giants 1, Sheffield Steelers 2. A weekend of games in Edinburgh was next for the Steelers. A dominant 4-0 victory on the 24th of January was followed by a 5-2 victory the following night on the 25th of January. The return contest at Ice Sheffield had a bad start for the Capitals as Ashley Tate scores in the opening minute. Brad Cruikshank added to the Capitals' misery when he scores in the latter part of the first period. The Capitals made some ground on the Steelers towards the end of the first as Mark Hurtubise scores to make the score 2-1. The Steelers found themselves on the negative end of a power play midway through the second period as Jonathan Phillips takes the puck up to the Capitals net and Ryan Finnerty scrambles the puck in the net to score a short-handed goal. A couple minutes later, Randy Dagenet put the Steelers further in lead, making it 4-1 going into the third. A Ryan Finnerty tripping minor gave the Caps the power play, but they took full advantage of and Martin Klingel scores. But Jason Hewitt widened the gap to 5-2 a minute later. fight broke out between Steve Munn and Doug Christensen. Leaving on the penalty kill, the Steelers were dangerous, as Joey Talbot scored a short-handed goal, ending the game at Sheffield Steelers 6, Edinburgh Capitals 2. The Steelers ended January 10 points clear of second-place Belfast Giants on 67 points. The Coventry Blaze were third on 55 points, with 3 games in hand on the Steelers, and the Nottingham Panthers were fourth with 54 points as we head into February. Another road game and another trip to the Sky Dome as the Steelers went to Coventry to face the Coventry Blaze. The Steelers started strong as Ben O'Connor was caught with a boarding penalty and Joey Talbot scored to take the lead. Ryan Finnerty scores one of his own at the 5-minute mark, putting the Steelers up by 2. A bit of a scrap involving Jason Hewitt, Mark Thomas and Eric Helmerson, and the Blazers' Jonathan Weaver narrowed the score line at 2-1. But Jody Lehman kept the Blaze out of the Steelers' net in the third to make the final score Coventry Blaze 1, Sheffield Steelers 2. Yet another road game, this time in Basingstoke, saw the Steelers' form improve as Jeff LeGuy started the second period with 2 goals. Ashley Tate ended the period with a goal of his own, making it 3-0 after 2 periods. Brad Cruikshank carried on the Steelers' goal scoring in the third, and Ryan Finnerty does the same less than a minute later. A power play goal by Jonathan Phillips ends the game at Basingstoke Bison 0, Sheffield Steelers 6. The Steelers came back to the arena the next night to face the Belfast Giants, who were looking to end the Steelers' current streak. Steve Lyle was the difference maker early on, blocking shots at will. The pass from Malcolm McMillan gave Colin Shields the opening to score the first goal. But the second period started strong for the Steelers as Robert Dowd ties the game at 1 apiece. When Ashley Tate tripping penalty gave the Giants the man advantage, and Malcolm McMillan puts the Giants in front again. The Steelers fought back though, as Ryan Finnerty gets the puck up to Brad Cruikshank, who makes it 2-2. Another period and another goal as Jeff LeGuy puts the Steelers ahead 3-2. But the Giants fought back, with Evan Chevry tying the game up with a power play goal, taking the game into overtime. The chances kept coming in overtime, but the Steelers would take the game as Scott Bassett scores in overtime, for a final score of Sheffield Steelers 4, Belfast Giants 3. Valentine's Day at the Sheffield Arena, but no love lost here as the Sheffield Steelers took on the Nottingham Panthers once more, and Jale Galbraith broke some hearts, scoring the opening goal. Robert Dowd and former Steeler Dan Tessier dropped gloves soon after. Joey Talbot ties the game at 1-1. The second period brought a second fight as Big Kevin Berger and Steve Munn fought. Jade Galbraith scores his second of the night midway through the second period. The Steelers came back only a few seconds later as Ryan Finnerty scores. And Jeff LeGuy follows on a few seconds after that, ending the second period at 3-2. The Steelers had a power play advantage midway through the third, but that didn't stop Brendan Cook, who tied the game at 3-3. The Panthers had their chances in overtime, as did the Steelers. After scoring 2 goals each in the shootout, the Panthers' Kevin Bergen was denied by Jody Lehman. But Robert Dad wasn't to be denied, as the Steelers won a tough game at Sheffield Steelers 4, Nottingham Panthers 3 after penalties. Another home game for the Steelers as the Newcastle Vipers came to town. The Steelers put a lot of pressure on the Vipers early on. Culminating with the first goal as Robert Dowd takes the lead. But the Vipers jumped all over a power play advantage as Jeff Hutchins ties the game in the first. The Vipers kept up their momentum in the second, but Lehman denies them. Andrew Bernard does the same for the Vipers. But the Steelers came out playing hard in the third, and Joe Talbot gives the Steelers the lead. But the Vipers answer back quickly as Ed Courtney shoots the puck in the net. Face off a few seconds later, did actually take the chance, and he scores to put the Steelers up 3-2. An incident with Andre Payet at the end of the game didn't change anything, as the final score was Sheffield Steelers 3, Newcastle Vipers 2. A seemingly unbeatable Steelers faced the Hull Stingrays at the arena, with league victory just in reach. But Matt Reynolds gave the Steelers a wake-up call midway through the first with a power play goal. The Steelers came back in the second with force as Mark Thomas ties the game at 1 apiece. A brilliant save from Jody Lehman early in the first wasn't enough as Jamie Thompson gave the Stingrays the lead. The Steelers controlled the rest of the period as Brad Cruikshank ties it up 2-2. Then Jeff Legui and Joey Talbot make it 3-2 in the final minutes of the period. And Doug Shepard scores late in the third after the Stingrays pull their goalie, making the final score Sheffield Steelers 4, Hull Stingrays 2. The Coventry Blaze came into the arena for the last game in February. And got to work fast as Ben O'Connor scores midway through the first. The Steelers nearly tied things up towards the end of the period. But the Blaze kept coming when Adam Calder put them up by 2. A hooking penalty gave the Steelers a chance soon after as Joey Talbot makes it 2-1. The Steelers nearly make it 2-2, but some brilliant goaltending by Perras keeps the Blaze in front. The power play would cost the Steelers this time, however, as Ben O'Connor makes it 3-1. But the power play becomes an advantage as Jeff Legui puts the puck in the net. The Steelers fought hard in the third, but couldn't get past Perras. Back and forth plays kept both goaltenders busy, but neither giving an inch. But the Blaze defence and goaltender stopped the Steelers from scoring. So the final score, Sheffield Steelers 2, Coventry Blaze 3. Sheffield ended February still on top, 7 points clear with 77. Second with the Coventry Blaze on 70 points, followed closely by the Belfast Giants on 67 and the Nottingham Panthers on 66. It was all to play for as we headed into March. Following the last game's defeat, the Steelers headed to the Sky Dome to get back on track. Ashley Tate scored a power play goal early in the first, and Jeff Legui made it 2 soon after, and Sylvain de Châtelet made it a 1-goal game soon after that to make it 2-1. Then the netminders became brick walls as Paras and Lehman stopped every puck in their path through the rest of the first and second periods. The same form held up until the final minutes as Ryan Finnerty scored a solo effort, clinching the game at Coventry Blaze 1, Sheffield Steelers 3. The Steelers travelled to the NIC to face the Nottingham Panthers, needing only 2 points to take the Elite League title. Bruce Richardson and Scott Bassett fought early on, but it would be a goalless game till the final minutes of the first as Johan Molin put the Panthers up by 1. James Ferrara makes it 2-0 quickly in the second, but Steve Munn made it a 1-goal game midway into the second period, but Johan Molin scored his second goal off the power play to close the second period at 3-1. Brendan Cook made things go from bad to worse for the Steelers in the third, putting the Panthers up 4-1. Brad Cruikshank scored a consolation goal in the closing minutes, but the final score was Nottingham Panthers 4, Sheffield Steelers 2. Another road game for the Steelers as they played the Newcastle Vipers again. Derek Campbell scores early in the first, and those elusive 2 points looked like they would slip away again, as the Vipers held the Steelers off for the rest of the first period and a majority of the second until Robert Dowd tied the game at 1-1. This gave the Steelers all the momentum they needed as Joey Talbot, Ashley Tate and Jeff LeGuy scored a goal each in the third period to clinch the Elite League title with a final score of Newcastle Vipers 1, Sheffield Steelers 4. With the Elite League title in the bag, the Steelers came home to the arena to face the Vipers for the final time this season. Rob Wilson's hooking penalty gave the Steelers the advantage as Scott Bassett opens the scoring midway through the first. The Vipers fought back, but Dan Green denied them. The second period started and Jeff Hutchins' tripping penalty gave the Steelers the advantage again as Doug Shepherd scores a tight angle shot. The Vipers tested Dan Green again soon after, but to no avail. The Steelers nearly made it 3-0, but the Vipers stopped them in their tracks. Once again, Dan Green stopped the Vipers to keep the score at 2-0. The Vipers kept chipping away in the third period, and Ed Courtney scores to make it 2-1. The Vipers pull their goalie in the final minute, and after a scuffle along the boards, Jonathan Phillips scores an empty net goal. The final score, Sheffield Steelers 3, Newcastle Vipers 1. Next came the last game between the Devils and the Steelers as the Devils played for their playoff seeding. Power play opportunity for the Devils opened the scoring as Tyson Teflitsky scores the first goal of the game. And with a power play of their own, Ashley Tate scores for the Steelers, making it 1-0. A few seconds later, however, Phil Hill retorts to put the Devils up 2-1 to end the first period. Another power play cost the Steelers again, as Wes Jarvis puts the Devils up 3-1. Doug Shepherd scores to make it 3-2. The new signing Matt Ellich adds another point to his total with a goal to end the second at 4-2. The Devils' pressure continued at the start of the third. And Mike Perpich makes things worse for the Steelers, scoring to make it 5-2. Ross Sarrett scores to bring the score at 5-3. But Bradloff put the final nail in the coffin with a goal late in the third to seal the game at Sheffield Steelers 3, Cardiff Devils 6. In the final league game at the arena, the Basingstoke Bison came to town and Mike Olniak and Andrew Sharp started the game fighting. The Steelers came at the Bison at full force, but the Steelers couldn't seem to be able to score. The Steelers kept up the pressure at the start of the second, and with Joey Talbot playing against the board, he passes out to Jonathan Phillips, who scores the first goal of the game. Ashley Tate keeps up the scoring soon after to put the Steelers up by 2. The Steelers found themselves in the penalty kill early in the third, but Lehman stops all the shots in front of him. And even with a man disadvantage, Jason Hewitt scores a short-handed goal to put the Steelers up by 3. Then a few minutes later, Robert Dowd fires home the Steelers' 4th goal. Bison nearly score a consolation goal, but Lehman saved some tight defence work and the post denies them a goal. Final score, Sheffield Steelers 4, Basingstoke Bison 0. The last game of the season for the Steelers was the last game against the Bison in Basingstoke. A dominating performance by the Steelers was stopped early by the Bison as Greg Chambers and Brent Hughes score early to put the Bison up by 2. But Robert Dowd and Jason Hewitt both score soon after to end the period tied 2-2. Trevor Reed gave the Bison the lead midway through the second, till Joey Talbot tied the game up again at 3-3. The third period, however, was dominated by the Steelers as Doug Shepherd and Ashley Tate scored to end the season on top, and the game at Basingstoke Bison 3, Sheffield Steelers 5. So the final league table looked like this, as the Sheffield Steelers stood triumphant at the top of the table, second were the Coventry Blaze and third were the Nottingham Panthers, but the winners of the 2008-2009 Elite League title are the Sheffield Steelers.